Good morning, students. Let's start the revision of chapter 3 from your book Flamingo Deep Water, as some of the points were not clear to some of the students. So, we are revising this chapter. I'm telling you the main important points of the chapter. After that, you can ask your questions if you still have any doubt. The story Deep Water deals with the idea of fear. It conveys that fear is a great obstacle in the way of happiness. It is a negative feeling which paralyzes a human being and makes him passive. The story conveys the message that we should make consistent efforts to overcome fear. So, if we go for the introduction of this chapter, it is written by William Douglas, and he is writing this story in the form of an autobiographical mode. That means he is sharing his own personal experience with us in this chapter. And this lesson is an excerpt from Of Men and Mountains, written by William Douglas. It reveals how, as a young boy, William Douglas nearly drowned into a swimming pool. In this essay, Douglas talks about his fear of water and thereafter how he finally overcame it. He tells us that when he was 3 or 4 years old, he had an aversion to and fear of water. It is interesting to note how the author uses his autobiographical part to support his idea of fear. After he overcomes his fear of water, a great truth dawns upon him. He realizes that in death there is peace, but there is terror only in the fear of death. Therefore, one should overcome the fear itself. Douglas narrates his experience in a very clear and simple manner. So, you can see in the introduction part also about the author given in your book. And if we talk about the main character of the story, that is William Douglas, he was a very bold and determined person. He was persistent and focused his fear of water and was therefore afraid of swimming in deep water. Once he fell into the water and was in great difficulty. He became panicky. He tried to grab a rope, but his hands clutched only water. He felt suffocated. His eyes and nose came out of water, but not his mouth. He swallowed water and felt choked. His legs became stiff and rigid like lifeless things. He lost his breath. His lungs ached and he felt dizzy. A stark terror seized him, but he did not give in. He gave up his efforts and passed into oblivion. After some time, he regained his consciousness and saw himself lying on his stomach inside the pool. Douglas had a positive bent of mind. He decided to overcome his fear of water and succeeded by taking training from an instructor, learning the thin things step by step. That means with great efforts, hard labor, and continuous efforts, perseverance efforts, he overcame his feeling of fear. If we talk about the message of this chapter, in this lesson, the author wants to convey that we should convince ourselves that it is not death, but the fear of death that brings terror and panic to our mind. We should know this fact that each person has to die one day. No one is immortal. Once we accept the inevitability of death, we will overcome the fear of death. We should make consistent efforts to overcome fear. At the same time, we should endeavor not to allow the past fears to spoil our present pleasures. कि अपनी पुरानी बातों को याद करके हम हमेशा अपने प्रेजेंट को खराब करें, ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए. We should make efforts to improve and find our weak points, then work on that, getting guidance from someone, and doing practice again and again, we can overcome our feeling of fear. And if we go for the theme of the chapter Deep Water deals with the idea of fear. It conveys that the idea that fear is a great obstacle to our happiness and progress. It's a negative feeling which becomes an obstacle every time and restrains us from doing any work. We cannot avoid it, but we can overcome it with persistent efforts, hope, and determination. By sheer willpower and optimism, we can overcome it. So it is rightly said by Roosevelt that all we have to fear is fear itself. That means first we have to find out the feeling of fear, why we are afraid of. What is the reason? Where is the weak point? And then try to overcome that. If we talk about the title of the chapter, in this lesson titled Deep Water, the author gives us an autobiographical account of his childhood misadventure at the swimming pool. He reveals how, as a young boy, he was nearly drowned in a swimming pool. Thereafter, he was gripped by the fear of water. He feared water so much that he avoided it. Whatever he whatever he feels and whenever he could, but he was determined to get rid of this fear. So he engaged a tutor to learn to swim. Gradually the instructor built a swimmer out of the author. Slowly and steadily he overcame the fear of water. He swam in different lakes and seas to overcome the fear of water. So the title Deep Water signifies the author's fear of water. That's why we can say that the title is apt and appropriate and suitable. So you must be careful about the particular statements given to you from the chapter when you uh, attempt the questions. We were having the question in PT2 also from this chapter, which some of the students were not able to attempt. As in the last lines, if we go for the statement of Douglas, when he says the experience had a deep meaning for me, what does it mean? He wants to say that the experience of swimming showed that courage, hope, and persistent efforts are essential to overcome all fears and obstacles to one's goal in life. That means, whatever the message we get from this chapter, that is the deep meaning which he had also learned. So, in this way, this is the sum up or the gist of the chapter. Now, if you have any problem, you can ask your questions or your queries